Everything is changing from how we work to governments to business to money to the environment to AI. Now more than ever is the time to build your business skills. I truly believe it's the only way to survive the digital future. Well, the digital now is to build those business skills. And that's whether you want a side hustle, whether you decide to stay at your job, hell, whether your job decides you can no longer stay. Those business skills are what's going to protect all of us from uncertainty and financial downfall. And honestly, in a not too far future, they might be the only thing that keep us fed. So it's worth talking about what's happening in the world and what's happening in the country now. That way we can kind of get ahead of it and at least to prepare. Thanks for stopping by. My name is Dom. I'm an artist and herbalist building my entrepreneur and business skills so I can have a good life. And if you're interested in doing the same, then be sure to hit that subscribe button. And before we jump in, just a really quick disclaimer. Some of these things you may not be aware of. Some of them may scare you. Some of them may seem a little bit scary, but I don't say any of them to scare you. I say them to prepare you. I truly believe that the best way to beat fear is with awareness, with trust, with preparation. And until you are aware of these things, or until you can kind of get in your consciousness how they affect you, you won't be able to prepare. So let's just get started. So, from paying attention to a lot of other creators, there are, I kind of feel like, 6 or 7 big things that are going to or that are changing in the world. And that's with new technologies like AI, that's with um, the way we relate to each other. Those 6 things I've seen are education, jobs, governments, like society and economics, globalization, and the environment, right? So let's start with education. First, um, the way people are going to school is changing because jobs are changing, which we'll get to jobs in a second. Education is changing. People aren't necessarily spending hundreds of $1,000s for a 4-year degree when they can get the same knowledge and probably even more experience for less money and less time, whether that's learning directly from someone, say a content creator, or apprenticing with, say, an electrician or a carpenter or whatever, versus actually going to school. People are finding that those non-traditional routes are a lot cheaper, and by the time that 4-year degree is over, you would have had several years of experience and would have been able to dramatically increase your earning amount, especially versus someone who just finished school, has not had any experience. Also, another thing is those student loans and prices for school that I mentioned earlier. Prices for college have gone through the roof. People are paying hundreds and hundreds of thousands of dollars, and I feel like low key I feel like I paid a lot of money for college, but nowhere near as much as some of these colleges are now. There are colleges that are $400,000. There are colleges that are over $100,000 a year. Like, that's insane to me. And not only that, but like with college, there's not always a guarantee that you'll finish. Some people get to year 2 and decide to not go back. Some people almost graduate. Some people may take 5 years or 6 years. But no matter how long it takes you, or whether you go, or I'm sorry, whether you go to the finish line and complete it all or not, If you take out loans, if you take out money to go to college, you still have to pay that money back. So younger people, especially Gen Z, are learning from my generation's example and getting out and finding that there aren't as many jobs as we were promised, and that college is not only expensive but getting more expensive and still having to be paid back whether you complete it or not. It's made a lot of people not think it's worth it. And honestly, whether you think it's worth it or not is up to you, but I could absolutely understand how people could believe they could get a skill or learn that skill in less than a year with significantly less money and then get as much experience as possible. So, moving from jobs in, or I'm sorry, moving from education into jobs, um, college has gotten so much more expensive, and because people are finding that people with experience can do the job better than someone who has theoretical education but no experience, people aren't valuing college education as much, in my opinion. And that's especially outside of like specialized jobs. Like if you wanted to be a college professor, then you would probably need a college degree for that. If you wanted to be, I don't know, a neonatal surgeon or something, you would definitely need some college education for that. But a lot of jobs, most jobs, you don't necessarily need college education for. Another thing that like really kind of strikes me in the face is most jobs, they're going to train you. Most jobs, unless you need some kind of specialized knowledge that you would have had to get before, most jobs will just train you. They will teach you how they want you to do the job. So I think as a result, people have been less concerned with degrees. And in this digital age, I think people have been actually turning their attention actually. Yeah. So jobs, all kinds of jobs are changing. We all knew that jobs were going definitely more digital. 2019 with the pandemic, that kind of ramped things up. A lot more people went remote, and then even after the pandemic, a lot of people did not come back. Currently, the company that I work for now, they were one of those companies that did not come back. So most of the staff is remote. And a lot more jobs have gone that route. They found that it's like it's a lot less expensive if we are already going to need the computers and everything anyway. These people can just take it home. We don't have to pay for the building rents. We don't have to pay for the, meals or whatever extras that we give them on Tuesdays, Thursdays, whatever day. So I think a lot of businesses have found that it's a lot cheaper. And then adding on these new technology changes, um, like AI, that's made jobs want to be even more efficient and try to cut costs even more. So a lot of people have been trying to figure out how they can use AI to cut down their workforce, to fire more people while still maintaining or even getting more productivity, right? So that means that there's probably going to be a lot more layoffs in the future, especially as people continue ramping up with AI. Whether that's AI on social media, whether that's AI through your job, AI through call centers, whether that's, I don't know, AI through governmental usage, all of these things in an attempt to get more efficiency. I think they're going to cost people more jobs, or there's going to be some kind of rearranging of jobs. Even if everyone doesn't get laid off, like AI will naturally replace some jobs, but I do believe there'll probably be other jobs like, I don't know, prompt engineer that are created because of those jobs. And if AI is replacing a lot more people, I would assume that we would probably need a lot more people in the IT sector, right? We would probably need a lot more people who are programmers or technicians to keep everything going smoothly. That's just a thought. I don't know. I don't science. Okay, so number three, what's going on in the world? Reasons you want to build your business and entrepreneur skills, right? Three is governments. So governments all across the world, they're doing a lot of things, whether that's engaging in censorship, whether that's increasing taxes, whether that's trying to ban certain freedoms, certain expressions, all these kind of things. It's definitely more beneficial for you to have a business and entrepreneur skills because you can affect those things that are happening in this country, in the US. Like, it's not really too much of a secret that we're all run by the business class. Um, so I would kind of think that being part of that class means that you would have more say so in what happens. Another thing is, as they naturally change, as governments and things get restrictive, when you build up your entrepreneurial and business skills, you will naturally see the value and how to create value for others. So when and if that happens, you'll be able to pivot. You'll still be able to provide people something that's beneficial, that can still get you income, that can, let you work around whatever these governments are doing. And if you have those skills, if you have those business skills, if you decide to leave, if you decide to go to a different country or a different place, um, you'll be set up to be able to take care of yourself. You'll be more flexible. Okay, so then the next one is um, societal and economic changes, right? So everybody knows about AI. Everybody's heard about Chat GPT, but what you may not have known is since Chat GPT, there have been over 300, over 300 AI programs. And they do various things. They edit videos. There are some that generate scripts, that generate text. There are some that edit things. There are some like, I mean, really, I kind of feel like AI is the new app. If you can, if there's something you want to do, how people are like, oh, there's an app that can do that, there's an AI that can do that. And in addition to AI, um, there's some other things that are happening too. Virtual reality, the metaverse is happening. There's digitalization. So banks are digitizing everything, right? They're trying to make everything like a digital token so that way it can be more easily dispersed and controlled, right? But if you have your own business, your own entrepreneur skills, you may be able to work around that easier. You may not be subject to as much control because you will have more control over your own finances, your own income. And in addition to that financial overhaul, another thing that's coming up is central bank digital currencies, cryptocurrencies, things like that. And you, in my opinion, you'll be a lot better. You might be a lot better off with those business skills Okay, so next one, and this is five, so we only have like one or two more, is globalization. So we all know about the wars that are happening all over the world, funded by all over the world. Um, so as these wars and things happened, and a really good person to learn more about this from is a man named Peter Zahan. He talks a lot about geopolitics, but just how countries work together, how they work with each other, how they trade amongst each other. And I feel like as certain things are happening, um, we might see a little bit less of that, especially if you're a person who's living in the US. So there's this thing called de dollarization. Countries um, across the world, specifically the BRICS nations. What is that? Brazil, Russia, India, ooh, China, South Africa? Yes. Okay. I think that's it. Um, the BRICS nations, they are moving away from the US dollar, which means that we may lose our status as the reserve currency in the world, so we wouldn't be able to kind of get rid of our debt or inflate some of our debt away by pushing it overseas like how we used to. And in fact, that might mean that a lot of our things may become inflated if a lot of people use the US dollar less. So if they use the dollar less, that means that more of those dollars will come back to the US. So when there are more dollars, the money supply is inflated, right? And because the money supply is inflated, meaning there's more of it, the cost of everything goes higher, right? So if that were to happen, there could be a time where you could see huge inflation, hyperinflation, something like that, that could happen in the US. And then also, if countries aren't really fucking with us like that, they're probably going to be less open to trade with us. And a lot of things we get from China, whether that's our boring convenience like knick-knacky stuff like thumbtacks that would be so much cheaper to be made in China than and shipped here than to be made here, a lot of that stuff may start to dry up. So even basic things may become more expensive. And then, as I mentioned earlier, with how countries are relating to each other, specifically with wars, like, say, Russia and Ukraine, right? I was reading this thing that they're like both, if I'm not mistaken, they're like huge producers of grain. So a lot of people were expecting that with this war, there would be like a slowdown in um, grain trades or shipments, right? And it got me to thinking like, it's not even just war where things like that could happen, where the trade of a commodity could be stopped for whatever reason. It's literally could be whatever reason. Like, it could be because someone's government is upset that week. It could be because someone's government wants to sanction somebody else's government. Whatever the case. But with those, because a lot of people think that things that are happening across seas don't affect them, but with a world that's so closely tied, something that happens across seas will affect you in one way or another. You may not be able to see it immediately, but all these things affect us all because we're all tied together, right? So then, yeah, the last reason, world reason that I see that it'd be best to build your business and entrepreneurial skills is the environmental changes. The girls are poisoning the land, the sea, the air, all of it. Governmental regulations seem to, in the US at least, honestly change every, what, 4 to 8 years with each like incoming regime. They fire a bunch of people and change a whole bunch of things and regulate this and regulate that. Um, I don't know how much of that has changed because a lot of policies like Trump and Biden are actually the same person on, but different story for a different time. But with the environment changing, anything could happen. What if there were a case where a certain, I don't know, bridge that got knocked down that provided critical infrastructure and, commodities to a specific city? Imagine if that were to happen, and imagine if that were to happen and there were to be some kind of environmental damage that happens from that, right? Let's say that bridge goes down and there happened to be an oil tanker on top, or the ship that hit it was an oil tanker and it spilled all out into a large body of water. So now that's contaminated. So now maybe the drinking water is contaminated, or the fresh food or the wildlife or whatever may be contaminated. So then we may be in an environmental crisis, right? So then the prices for everything, for certain commodities like food that you may need to survive, the prices for those things would probably, possibly go up, right? Because the girls they don't let a good crisis go to waste. And as much as we like to believe that governments are out here doing the best that they can to help people, they're doing the best that they can, honestly, to enrich themselves. So who's to say that there couldn't be an environmental issue similar to that, or I don't know, maybe an EMP strike or a cyber attack that makes it to where all the commodities skyrocket in price? If you are at a W-2 job, then if your employer doesn't decide to pay you more, then you might be SOL, or you might be paying more for basic things, or you may be going without more often. Whereas if you have business or entrepreneurial skills, if you decide to stay in that job, you can have a business on the side. If you decide to stay out um, of that job, you can control your income a little bit more with value based things. And one of those things that you may be able to trade a value is, I don't know, maybe you trade whatever you do for a gardening class. So now you know how to feed yourself. And that's something that you can also use to provide value to other people and make some income for yourself. So that's just some of the things that I see that could possibly be happening um, in the world, that having business or entrepreneurial skills may prepare you a little bit better for. Um, are there some things that I missed? Some things that you see happening? If there are, drop them in the comments. I'd love to know. Um, and if you find value in this content, if you like this content, subscribe. It really helps out so much, and I super appreciate it. And I hope to catch you back for the next one.